So this will be our fourth dot that we're connecting here. We will be talking with Alice Faye Bailey and Miriam Owens about their wisdom regarding how to live well with dementia. And before I give the floor to these remarkable women, I just want to frame our conversation with a few points from two sources of research regarding living well with dementia. Can you see my screen? Can somebody give me a thumbs up if you can see my slide? Oh, perfect, thank you. So, it's so nice to be able to talk about research, but then hear personal experiences, because it's those personal experiences that bring it to life. And it's also good to sort of see what the overall data shows us. So the Lancet Commission, which is a resource that we talked about earlier, does include some information about what research tells us regarding living well and staying well with dementia. And it talks about the importance of a person-centered approach, both for individuals living with dementia and those who care about them. And all that fancy term means is that each person is an individual and one size does not fit all. So we have to really listen to people, to pay attention to culture and other factors that make people unique. And from that place of understanding, then we can help them better. The Lancet report also really highlights the importance of maintaining physical health and avoiding hospitalization, because hospitalization can be pretty hard for people living with dementia. So again, all these brain health approaches that we've been talking about are very much of critical importance for people who are living with a diagnosis of dementia as well. Medications, so there are some that have been prescribed for a long time to help with symptoms: cholinesterase inhibitors and memantine for people with Alzheimer's and Lewy body dementia. And one point there is that we have to get better and better at diagnosis so that we know which medical condition people actually have, because some treatments are not appropriate for all forms of dementia. And then the anti-amyloid medications are newer on the scene in the last couple of years. And these are the first treatments that actually slow down the disease progression. And there are many questions that remain because they're expensive. They bring with them some risky symptoms, and we're still trying to understand more about how well they work. So, we're at a very early stage of the exciting area of hopefully more disease-modifying treatments. That's from the Lancet report, and I want to just touch on a different report. This is a needs analysis by the National Council of Dementia Minds. And what's really significant about this report, and Jessica will put these links in the chat for you, is that this needs assessment was done by a group of 65 people who are living with mild cognitive impairment or dementia. And they identified a critical need for information and education for people living with dementia, not just for the people who care about them. So as much as we need more resources and support for family and friends, there really has been very little directly for the people who themselves are living with dementia. So that's a big area that we could do better. And then they're calling for more of a chronic disease management model that includes peer support, financial empowerment that addresses a range of ages and situations, legal guidance, and emotional and practical support. And then they identify potential for reducing healthcare system costs by helping people live better for longer, essentially. So I encourage you to take a look at both of those resources, because they're really very rich and full of information. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to ask Anne if she could spotlight Miss Miriam and Miss Faye, and I want to give them a warm welcome. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about these amazing women. So Alice, better known as Faye Bailey, is a native of Springfield, Massachusetts. She's known in the community by her extraordinary customer service skills and 30-year career in retail. Faye was diagnosed with younger onset Alzheimer's in 2018 at age 55. She chose to begin talking about her journey in webinars and conferences to educate the community on the barriers she has faced. Faye and her husband have 3 adult children and are proud grandparents to 4 grandchildren. Faye has been an active member of St. John's Congregational Church for over 20 years. And Miss Miriam Owens lives in Virginia with her husband, has 3 adult children, 3 precious grandchildren, and a sweet dog named Sasha. Miriam was diagnosed with Parkinsonism and Lewy body dementia in her mid-50s. Miriam previously owned a childcare business, and nurturing young children has always been her passion. She has written and self-published books and played piano for church choirs. Her diagnosis required her to change her focus to advocacy, a mission she has embraced wholeheartedly. Thank you so much, Alice and Miriam, for being here.
Thank you.
And I want to welcome.
Thank you.
I want to start off by asking you both if you would each share with us a little bit about the period of adjustment, because I think with any big life change, there is time required to adjust. So when you were first diagnosed, can you tell us a little bit about what feelings you had and what changes you made? Let's start with you, Faye.
Okay, could you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like when you first were diagnosed with younger onset Alzheimer's? What were some of the feelings that you had and some of the changes that you made?
When I was first diagnosed, I really had a mixed emotion about it. Seeing that my mother struggled with the diagnosis and she died of dementia. So seeing after that, I had a feeling of acceptance because I kind of seen what she was going through. So I felt I wasn't really concerned about it. My biggest concern, however, was the glioma that they found during my MRIs and CAT scans. And I think I was more concerned about that than anything else. And then I found out that that glioma was very small and insignificant. And so that put a big change, put me at ease at somewhat. And I just kind of followed how my mother kind of handled it until she was at a point where, she just didn't know what was going on anymore. So that's just where I am, just trying to live my best life until it all kind of goes away. And then I just live in acceptance.
Thank you, Faye. So it sounds like your mother is a role model for you in that, and you're focusing on what you can do each and every day. And we'll hear more about that in a minute. Thank you. Miriam, would you tell us a little bit about what your process was like after you were diagnosed?
Sure. Thank you, Beth. Well, my process was different because when I was diagnosed, my doctor told me what my diagnosis was at my very first visit with him, but he did not explain to me what the diagnosis meant. Now, of course, I had heard about dementia. I had seen people living with late stage dementia. But because he didn't seem very concerned, he didn't seem panicked, he didn't offer any additional support or ideas. He did prescribe medication at that visit, which I'm grateful for. But initially, I guess I had kind of a delayed reaction to my diagnosis because it was only after doing my own research about my diagnosis that it hit me, the magnitude of what I was now dealing with hit me at that point. So it's a little bit of a delayed response to my diagnosis, but once I had that information, I began to try and build a support a network for myself, not only medically, but socially. And we talked about some of the physical things that are helpful with a diagnosis of dementia or mild cognitive impairment.
Thank you, Miriam. So I want to comment on what you said, but just a technical issue here. It sounds like some people are having trouble hearing. I wonder, Miriam and Faye, I don't know if you can see the options on your Zoom menu bar. There's a little globe which says interpretation. If you're able to click on that and choose the English channel, I think that would help the audio.
Okay, done.
Let's try that.
Right.
Does that help? Maybe if anybody out there in TV land can let me know, can you hear better?
You know.
Okay, great. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
Miriam, I think what you said is so important, because I hear you saying that the medical diagnosis is not only hearing the terminology, but it has to be shared more broadly. What does this mean? What is the significance of this? And I think that doesn't always happen because there's not a lot of time that we have with our doctors often. And maybe there's not enough awareness of what it would actually feel like to be the person who receives the information, and that you need to be empowered to be able to figure out, okay, what do I do now? So thank you for sharing how there were almost two parts to that process for you.
You're
I
welcome.
wonder, thank you. I wonder if I could ask you each a little bit about daily life now. What does a typical day look like? What do you do to help you live well now? So let's go to Faye for that question. What do you do in your daily life?
Oh, I love to. Well, I recently started crocheting. That has been a lot. I used to crochet as a child, and all I know how to do is make blankets. And so that's what I do. I made a blanket. I like to play games on my phone, especially like mind games, like wordscape and things like that, where you have to concentrate on putting the words together. And the funny thing with me is I can put the word together, but I have difficulty because I'm trying to say the word instead of spelling the word. So even the word like I'm getting it all messed up because I'm trying to put the letters together and getting it all messed up. But I really do enjoy that. I love attending church. I always, even as a young child, wanted to participate in church. I always wanted to sing in a choir. I just was never brave enough to, or confident enough to ask. And I do it now. I don't know how I sound or how I'm making it, but I just enjoy doing it. It's a great relief for me, and it's a great way for me to praise and get a lot of anxiety and depression about my life out there. So I do it through my praise and singing. I like watching sports, although it drives my husband crazy because I like to make nicknames out of all the players, depending on how they look or the way they play the sport. So I call them funny names and stuff, and it drives him nuts. But I do enjoy watching sports. I love having a dog as a companion because my dog has learned my little, what is that? Either, my little mechanisms. He knows what I'm not supposed to be doing or forget to do sometimes. So he gets upset if I don't answer the phone right away, or if I leave the front door open and I forget to close it. He gets upset about that. So he warns me, that my door is open, or I've left something on the floor or anything like that. So he is a great companion. And of course, playing with my grandchildren is one of the best things that happen in my life, because I play with them not like a grandmother. I play with them like a child. So I use my rocking chairs if we're falling down a mountain and we need to be saved and stuff like that. So I'm not so much of a disciplinarian, but when I play, I play hard, and I think that every moment with them is I'm trying to capture snapshots in my mind. So I hug and kiss on them all the time. I never want to forget what they look like, how they smell, how they act, how they talk. And so I rather look at them than sit them in a corner for punishment or anything like that. I just love them to death.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Faye. You sound like a fun grandma.
I am.
I want to come to your house.
Yeah, anytime.
So Miriam, how about you? What do you find is your special sauce for living well day to day nowadays?
Well, like Faye, first and foremost, my faith is what sees me through. It's what holds me fast.
Mm.
And when I don't have the strength, I know I can rely on God, who does. And so that assurance is the number one thing that helps me through. Second is my family. I have a wonderful and amazing family who have become my village. Dementia, in a lot of cases, kind of in my case, I'll talk about mine, it has been a slow progression. But as that progression occurs, not only do I change, but the roles and relationships that I have with my family has to change too. And my family, I'm telling you, they are all winners. They have just, kind of risen to the occasion, and they support me in ways that are just incredible. I have to say, because we've always been so tight-knit as a family, I would have been kind of disappointed if that hadn't been the case, because we've just always had that kind of fabric in our family. So my family would be.
Uh-oh.
Just give it a moment.
Oh, certainly important is my advocacy. I do a lot of advocacy because I think you said it, Beth, that providers and other people who have, who are invested in this field need to hear from the people who are living with dementia to understand it. So I do a lot of advocacy. I have found that I am not able to do as much as I.
Oops. Somehow I can't hear you anymore. I'm not sure what happened there.
But
there we go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, so I was just talking a little bit about advocacy. One group is Black Dementia Minds. Incredible support group, and it just reinforces my need to be a part of a group with people who share things with me culturally, people who look like me. I just, the sense of belonging. And it's also a faith-based group, so it kind of hits on a lot of points for me, and they just feel like family. So very grateful for that group. If I could back up a little bit, Beth, before I forget this
Please.
point,
Go right ahead.
I wanted to say something about one of my advocacy, I call them my jobs, because I do see this as a job, is I sit on an external committee for the National Dementia Care Collaborative. And their focus is to come up with strategies for providers for implementing comprehensive dementia care. And I think, it's kind of what we've been talking about today, considering the whole person, considering the fact that diagnosing and saying, bye-bye, that's your diagnosis, and kind of leaving us to figure out our own support isn't good enough. So there is a model, there's a guide model that you can learn more about. I'll try to get that link and put it in the chat. But for providers who are interested, there's a models. Some of them have been implemented already, and it's very exciting to see the data on how those are working out. So important work that's being done, and I'm excited that so many people are here today interested in learning what they can do to further support those efforts for comprehensive dementia care.
Thank you, Miriam. And I see in the chat a question about support groups for people living with dementia and how to find them. So you can look at the National Council of Dementia Minds, which has many different groups, including the Black Dementia Minds group that Miriam is mentioning, and the Alzheimer's Association. Jessica, maybe you can put the Alzheimer's Association helpline phone number in the chat again, because they have groups in different parts of the country, and there are some virtual programs that you could join from anywhere. Also, Dementia Action Alliance, I saw that someone put that in the chat earlier, which I'll put in the website for Dementia Action Alliance, and I would encourage other people to keep sharing resources. But one of the good things about this virtual world that we're now in is that even if you live in an area where there might not be an in-person group, there probably is something that you can connect with virtually. So just to follow on what we've been discussing, I really appreciate what you're both saying about your what makes you resilient. And of course, it's different for everybody, but I think we can sense those common threads around meaning and purpose and having some sense of connection with others. And I wonder if you each can talk a little bit about what it's been like being a younger Black woman and how that has affected this journey, because you both were diagnosed in your 50s, which is younger. And then, we've been talking all day about dementia and culture, so would love to hear your thoughts on that. Faye, do you want to start?
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, when I was growing up, they didn't even pronounce it correctly. We used to call it old-timers. And it was just another way of saying that some people in their advanced years were forgetting things, and they mumbled to themselves, and they were put in the back bedroom and you were told not to bother them. So today, I think we've made great strides and improvement on diagnosis. And sometimes I wish that I wasn't diagnosed so early, because it's so difficult to explain to others what I have. Because they don't see they're not with me 24 hours a day, so they don't see any progression in the things I do. And of course, with a lot of people, we've done a lot of work to cover up how we, our fears and the things we forget, and our head scrambling and the fog and everything. We do a lot to keep working to cover up those symptoms. So we've always worked against it. So when I do ask, when I do tell people about it, they always go, "Are you sure? Did you get a second opinion? Because you're too old, you're too young." They never say you're too pretty, but you're too young to have these disease, this disease, because of course, when you are even now, when you're watching television, you always get someone kind of hunched over and mean, and don't want to cooperate with their older daughter and everything, and it just puts a really negative account of how we look. We're not all in that stage yet, so it's very kind of frustrating. I'd like to see people dance about Alzheimer's once in a while. They can do it for Ozempic, they can certainly do it for us. So I think it should be, a little happier. I had written some notes here. I'm just trying to look over really quickly. I was in a group, a Zoom group for people with dementia, but I hate to say it, but I was the only Black person in the group. And I felt very uncomfortable, not because of, that I was Black, but because their culture they were, getting these fantastic testing, and they were still vacationing and going to great places and doing all these wonderful things. And I'm like, I don't go anywhere. I don't do any of that. So I felt it was just like, so I wanted to be with a group that was a lot more like myself and my upbringing and my background. So that, in a sense, was very difficult.
Thank you, Faye. I hear this from a lot of people, and I relate to it myself, that when you're dealing with something that's very personal and difficult, even more so, you want to be in a place that feels like home.
Right.
You got a lot of compliments in the chat, by the way, Faye, saying you are very beautiful and pretty.
Oh,
so
God.
I'll make sure you get those messages later.
Oh, thank you.
Miriam
is very beautiful too. Don't let it
very
fool you.
beautiful. Absolutely. How about you, Miriam? What's your experience been like as a younger person, as a Black woman going through this process?
Well, I too was a part of Rocksteady Boxing at probably around the beginning, soon after being diagnosed. I was the only Black person there. And like Faye said, it's not so much about being the only Black person. That's not what made me uncomfortable, if I'm being honest. What did make me uncomfortable in that space was actually just one gentleman, a white man, who never spoke to me, but he had such a hostile stare. Honestly, every time I went to class, he was there and would just stare, and in just really unfriendly, unwelcoming kind of way. So, I had
Miriam muted herself.
Oh,
no, it's my computer.
okay.
Okay.
I'm hearing you now.
Yeah, so I was just made really uncomfortable there, unfortunately. As a Black woman in America, and there are other groups also affected by dementia in America who deal with bias, inherent bias. sometimes people don't know they're biased in the way they think about a person of color or a young woman with dementia who is advocating for herself and is assumed not to be as competent as others might be or as articulate. I've actually had people say to me, wow, you're so articulate. That's not a compliment, folks. It's not a compliment. So that's kind of been my experience. But when you pair that with dementia, being Black, a woman, a young woman, and having dementia, there are all these levels to the struggle. Struggle for adequate care, struggle to be heard, struggle not to be gaslit when you go to your doctor. I had one doctor actually tell me, you can't have dementia. You do know you're only 54. And I thought, of course I know I'm 54. You know, it just, those kinds of things, you know, that's been part of my experience. But the great part about my experience is, again, that I get to advocate. I've made a lot of friends, people who are walking the same journey, people who have an interest in making our journeys better, like you, Beth, and everyone here on the call. So that's the bright spot. That's the collateral beauty in all this for me.
Thank you, Miriam. So you're both advocates. You're both women who raise your voice and share your experience, which is such an act of generosity and courage. And I wonder what you think can help more people feel comfortable talking openly about dementia in the communities where you live.
You want to start with me?
That'd be great. Thank you, Faye.
When I go to my doctor, I don't always tell him my diagnosis. So I would like to see that be in the charts of all my other doctors, so I don't have to explain it. I know when I do tell them, they kind of go, oh, that's too, that's too bad. But they don't say, do you need anything from me? Do you want me to talk in a certain way? Can you understand everything that I'm saying? Or even say, I know you have this, but if you, I can give you a voucher for fruits and vegetables, or, do you want to go exercise somewhere to help with nothing? They, they're there to guide you in what their specialty is, but not, to help in that diagnosis. Okay, so you're not a neurologist, but that doesn't mean that you don't know anything about, Alzheimer's and dementia. I'm sure that they do, but they don't. Just looking over my notes. I don't know what a great idea this would be, but I would like to see Alzheimer's in stages, like they do cancer and renal failures. Because, for me, stage 1 could be, I've plateaued. I don't need that much assistance. I just have mild cognitive impairment. I don't get agitated easy. Step 2 could be, now I'm starting to get agitated. I do get upset sometimes. I'm a little higher in my cognitive impairment. I mean, I think that it works great up until, of course, you get to stage 3 and 4. But at least people can, don't think of you as somebody that's instantly dying tomorrow, because that's the way they look at you. And I think if I said, I have Alzheimer's, but I'm stage 1. So, I've got plenty of time to do things, because I do get phone calls from saying, oh my God, I heard you had Alzheimer's. Are you okay? I'm so sorry. I'm like, I'm fine. I'm okay. I got a little little things going on, but I'll be here tomorrow. Don't worry. So I just think that that was a good idea. I would like to see, for those who are still driving, in my neighborhood, we've had a lot of people that are driving into buildings and to park cars. And perhaps those people could have a cognitive impairment, because when I was driving, I often pulled on the side of the road because I got lost a lot. And if you get confused on that gas pedal, you know, and you get worrisome and you get anxious and you hit the wrong gas pedal or brake pedal, you could possibly hurt yourself. I would like to see an emblem on my license plate or my driver's license to let people know that I have a mild cognitive impairment. I can still drive. I might have a little, problem now, but I'm doing okay. And of course, I think I've talked to you before, Beth, about the help of a trained dog to help with this disease. Dogs can be trained to close doors and other great things to help, find your cell phone when you lose it and things like that. They can be trained to do magnificent things. And that should be offered to people in need, especially if they're alone, because there's a lot of people sitting alone at home, just suffering and, need not only a partnership to get better, but somebody that can help them on the day-to-day. And dogs are great for that.
Thank you for that, Faye. And one thing I'm hearing you say is, I come back to a saying I've heard many times, which is, you've seen one person with dementia, you've seen one person with dementia, that we need to move from assumptions and stereotypes to actually a concrete conversation about what the person needs, what they can do, what support they might need. And it's not going to be the same for two people. So you're mentioning driving, and in an ideal world, people would go to a driving assessment program if there's concern about their driving and really find out if they have impairments that affect their driving or not, but that we wouldn't make big assumptions about groups of people without knowing what's true for that person. That's all very helpful. And I see a lot of comments in the chat supporting what you're saying. And, that it can be hard to get that kind of individual treatment from healthcare and from just people in our lives. Miriam, I wonder what thoughts you have about how to encourage more people to maybe to become an advocate, but even if that's not something that they feel comfortable with, just to feel comfortable talking openly about dementia.
I think we all need to become really comfortable talking about dementia. For too long, it's just been something that people are uncomfortable talking about. People need to understand it's not just a disease that older people get. I know people in their 30s who have dementia. So we've got to come up with better diagnostic tools for that reason. I don't know what they would be. I'm not a doctor or a scientist, but a way to pick up on maybe some subtle changes that could be indicative of dementia, maybe not enough to diagnose, but just something. I mean, there just seems like there's this great big hole between diagnosis and end stage disease, but there's so much life to be lived in between. I think I said on a call yesterday, I've changed, but I haven't changed. The essence of who I am is still the same. So whatever you loved about me before, you can still love. What you hated, you can still hate. I mean, I'm still here. I'm still able to talk to you and to reason and I have opinions and thoughts and feelings. So we got to be able to talk about dementia, just like we talk about cancer, just like we
Right.
talk about diabetes, heart disease, whatever. With those conversations will come more interest in dementia. And when there's more interest, then there can be more funding. Where there's funding, there's research, and where there's research, there's a cure. So if we stop talking, if nobody wants to talk about it, it's never going to be big enough on the radar for the research to go forward and for there to be a cure one day. So my advice to anybody affected by dementia, whether you're living with it yourself, you have a family member, you're a professional caring for or working with someone who has dementia, a care navigator, keep talking about it. Dispelling the myths. There are many myths about dementia. Contrary to popular belief, we can still learn new things.
Absolutely.
I want to say, if Mom, if you're on the call, I don't know that applies to crocheting, but I've been trying. It's not working. Faye, you're my hero for that.
Oh, no, you're mine. You're mine.
But yeah, just conversation, just keep talking. Understand that a person with dementia is changing, sometimes minute by minute, right? And I can only imagine how hard that is for a partner, a child, or anyone trying to keep up. But if you just understand that we are changing, our personalities are changing, our temperaments are changing, obviously our memories are changing, and just show us some grace in those areas. And listen, I guess listening. I do try to be very vocal about what I need and what's happening with my brain so people around me know. I can't assume that they understand that, for example, it's difficult for me to get out of the car because there are several steps involved if you really think about it, right? You got to take your seatbelt off, you've got to change position. God forbid if you have bags to pick up too, and then your purse, like it's kind of a big deal. So I have to do that slowly. And I had to tell my husband that. I'm not just kind of being a slowpoke on purpose. I really have to think these steps out. So things like that, just being willing to listen, being willing to learn. And I guess, it's for the journey, if you're going to walk with us, you got to pack some patience and some bravery too.
Right.
So.
Packing patience.
Yeah. I would imagine that being on that journey teaches a lot of life lessons too. Being in the moment, really appreciating. Faye, I was thinking of what you said earlier about your grandchildren, how you just appreciate hugging them and you treasure that. Sometimes in life we forget to give the present moment its due, and we're always going on to what's next.
Or what
I
would
wonder.
happen?
Yeah.
We
My
don't know what's
mother-
going to happen.
Right. My
Right?
mother, when she was in a nursing home, she would call my daughter Cranberry. We didn't know why she called her Cranberry. She forgot her first name. And then I notice I do that too. I make up nicknames when I can't remember their first name. And let me tell you, it's funny. We still call it Cranberry every once in a while because it remembers her. It keeps her in our memories and in our prayers all the time. So I get my daughter's names mixed up all the time because of course I had to name them all beginning with A. That was genius. So I always get them mixed up all the time, but I tell you, their love and support all of us. I wouldn't be here without them. I wouldn't have the confidence a year ago, 2 years ago, I wouldn't have the confidence to sit there and even talk about my journey right now. So I do thank my friends and family.
That's wonderful. Well, on that note, Faye, because I think a lot of people don't feel able to talk about what their experience is like living with dementia. They don't
Mhm.
feel like it's okay to talk about it openly. Maybe they feel ashamed, which of course there's no shame in it, but we know there's a lot of stigma out there. So sometimes that holds people back, or maybe they just haven't found the words. So I wonder, Faye, if you could share with families in general, family members, what they can do to help. What would be your message for family members? How can they help someone they care about who's living with dementia?
Well, for me, it's just let me be me.
Mhm.
I can be a little quirky. I can get some names mixed up. Not great at history. And when it does happen, don't chastise me and try to correct me because it's too late. Don't try to put me in a box with everybody else that you know that has the same affliction. You, I'm not that person. I was always unique, and I'm gonna stay unique. But I'm always silly, and I probably always stay silly until the bitter end. Um, Also, when I speak, I think you had mentioned to someone to speak slowly. I do identify when people talk to me in a slower voice. If you talk too fast, I lose the the perception and what you're saying. And it's not that I can't hear, it's just that the words aren't registering faster. They're dropping off if you talk too fast. So I do, like people just to talk to me and just remain contact. I still have a bit of not OCD, but I don't like people to talk close to me like that. That kind of
Mhm.
that weirds me out. I don't like I don't like that at all. My daughter's laughing because she knows, hug me from afar. Don't get too much in my personal space. And it's only because, I think because the shame is still there. I think a lot of times we see dementia and Alzheimer's like we're carrying it on our shoulders. A lot of people don't know we have it, but we always feel like they can see that we have it by doing different things. I often in my day, especially when I'm alone, I scream out my dog's name for no reason. Just scream at him. And my daughters, they're used to it. They know that, it's a tension thing that built in my brain and I just have to get it out. They accept that. I type things weird and no one understands me, but that's just me. And just be patient. When she said, pack your patience because it's a long, long road. And I think I forgot to mention earlier that we have early onset and we're going to die with early onset. And to me, that doesn't make any sense. Like I'm going to have the same type of diagnosis. I got it in my 50s and I might die in my 80s or might die in my 60s, but I'm still early onset. That doesn't make any sense. And that stigma stays with you for the rest of your life. And it's terrible to be called early onset person. I hate that phrase actually, because I might be younger than most. I have a father who's over 100. He's 100 and some months, and he's just starting some dementia issues right now, but I would never say to him, oh, he's had it, he's early onset. That doesn't make any sense. So I really hate that phrase.
Thank you, Faye.
Mhm.
Miriam, how about you? What would you want family members and friends to know?
Well, kind of just to repeat what I said, I think on the last question, is I am changing, but I'm also the same
Mhm.
in a lot of ways. I want them to know that I understand how confusing this is for them, because it's confusing for me too, as a person living with it. I want them to understand that dementia is so much more than just memory loss. It's, changes for me, changes in my vision, my hearing, it's hallucinations, it's REM sleep behavior disorder. There's pain associated with the disorder as well. People often don't think about the sensory changes that occur. It's such a complicated diagnosis. And friends to know that, but I don't want them to, I don't want to scare them. I don't want them to be so afraid to interact because it's complicated.
Mhm.
I think Faye said it beautifully. Just let me be me. And then let's just walk together.
Mm.
Yeah, that's great. After all, we are all mortal, each and every one of us, and everyone is carrying something with them, especially as life goes on. So I love the way you both are opening up the conversation from the heart and letting people know that it's just about focusing on what's most essential and listening. I wonder, and we're starting to run low on our time here, but I wonder if each of you has a message that you would like to share with the medical community and other service providers about what you wish they understood. And you both have touched on that a lot in what you've already shared, but maybe just if there's something that comes to mind. Faye, what about you? What do you wish that doctors or social workers who run programs like me, what do you wish that we understood better about what it feels like to live with dementia?
Um, that word, like, don't put us in a box, that we're each individual is different, but we're, oh, the one thing I forgot to touch on is I believe that some professionals should have us be exempt from late fees and no show events when we go to the doctors, because a lot of times I show up at my doctor's appointment on the wrong day all the time. And they want to charge me because the day that I am assigned to be there, I can't make. And I think that's unfair. Sometimes it's very hard to leave the house, to leave an appointment. Oh, I forgot my phone. Oh, I forgot my purse. Oh, I don't know what this is. Oh, I can't find my cane. I run back and forth. Even when I was like, oh, I'm gonna leave my cane right here. I got my phone right here. My shoes are right here. I'm ready to go. And by the time it's going out the door, there's something I always forgot. So a lot of times I am late for an appointment, and they have to understand that that happens. No matter how organized you try to be, there's always something that you're going to forget or think you're going to forget. And don't forget, I'm 61 years old and I don't drive anymore. So I'm at the hands of somebody taking me to my appointments or anywhere that I have to go. I'm lucky to even be here because I have to rely on someone else's to transport me. And it's not easy. And that's one thing that I really wish they would change to be more perceptive of that. They always said, now don't forget that we have da 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 da. And I was like, okay, how can I remember? How are you going to help me remember what you don't want me to forget? And so sometimes I say, can you type that up for me? Can you let me have that paper of instructions that you want me to have? Because what you're telling me is going through one ear and out the other. I see you talking, but it's not staying in here. And especially not going to stay during Judge Judy. I'm going to forget everything that you told me. So you need to write it down so I can stick it on my fridge so that I know, because that's important. I'd like for them to print instructions for us that we can give. And then the person that you always want to have a buddy or a proxy, like my daughter, who types all the notes in from what the doctor is telling me, because she knows that she's not going to remember all this when you get home, and you're going to have the same problems the next time you see this doctor. She's going to be in the same condition. So she types up everything for me. And sometimes I wish that every patient had their own personal proxy, their person that helps them, write down the prescriptions, or if there's any changes or anything. No, because if they ask me, there any changes? I'm like, no, I think I'm good. Even though there's been a lot of changes since the last time I've been there, I couldn't think of it right on the spot. So I would like that to happen.
Thank you, Faye. That's very helpful. And Miriam, how about you? Is there anything you want to underscore about what you wish healthcare providers or other service providers understood better?
Well, I have 3 wishes written down. I think I touched on one, improving assessments to capture milder, more subtle brain changes earlier, because earlier diagnosis means earlier treatment of symptoms. The medicine is not curative, but it can lead to better quality of life. So that would be the first thing. Second, the comprehensive care issue, treating the whole person and their care partner and their families. Support that is comprehensive, that considers the uniqueness of the individual, as well as their families, spouses, or other care partners. That needs to start at the first visit.
Thank you, Miriam.
Offer that.
Thank you very much to both of you. And I think that now I'm going to just wrap up and underscore a few comments that I've heard, and then we're going to actually close on a very joyous note, because we have a short video that Faye's daughter Asia put together. But I want to really, really thank Faye and Miriam for what you've shared. And I will share with you the chat messages by email, because there's so much appreciation for both of you. We all know that reducing stigma and helping people talk more openly about dementia is such an important step for everything that we hope to see more of: research participation, more services, stronger communities, and so on, support for family members too. All of this requires that we be able to talk and share openly. And I think hearing from people like the two of you about what it's like to live with dementia and how you are living well with dementia and continuing to live your life with purpose and meaning is the number one way to break the silence and reduce the stigma. So thank you so much. And I want to just a little housekeeping before we watch the video, to let everybody know that we will set up a website with the recordings from today and the resource list and some other links. And Jessica will put that link in the chat again, but that should be ready within about 2 weeks. And we'll send a message to everybody who was registered for today. After the video, I'm going to bring up the links, QR code, and Jessica will put in the links to the evaluation that we hope you'll all fill out to give us feedback. And those of you who are getting continuing education units, that is a requirement. So with that, I want to share my screen again, and we're going to watch this wonderful video. It's about 4 minutes, and that will be kind of the last word for today. So here we go.
Which is very, I think everybody knows it's a horrifying disease. But also in 2018,
That's all right. That's all right.
I also was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's, which is also another terrifying disease. I might have a little bit longer time than my mother did because we didn't find out until she was in her final stages. But to God be the glory. I've been here. I've been living with Alzheimer's for 8 years. Amen, somebody.
What a beautiful quote to end with. Let nothing dim the light that shines from within. And Faye, nothing has dimmed your light. And that's true for you too, Miriam. And we are very grateful for both of you being here with us. Thank you so much to all of our speakers today, sponsors and partner organizations, all the helpers from JF&CS, and every one of you who attended. In a moment, I'm going to show you the QR code with the links to the evaluation in English and Spanish. I do hope that you will take a moment to give us feedback. Jessica, if you could put those links in the chat, that would be great. And we will be sharing recordings and resources from today within a couple of weeks. So thank you all again so much for being here, and we look forward to continuing the conversation. Take care, everybody.